What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video I want to talk about if Watch Dogs 3 will be the final Watch Dogs game. So I kind of want to go off and talk about Watch Dogs 3, Watch Dogs Legion, I guess you can call it, but the third game in the Watch Dogs franchise, a franchise that I specifically actually really love. Now, the first game, it's actually kind of a mixed bag, because the first game, to me, was the same thing as it was to a large majority of people, in that it was a complete disappointment. Obviously, the first reveal trailer we saw of that back at that year's E3, and just how amazing that game looked, and truly felt like it looked like it could have been the true next generation game, right? And like what we would come to expect from the next generation. And obviously we didn't get that. It let me down just as much as I think it let anybody else down. I truly despise actually Watch Dogs 1, and Watch Dogs 2 was a very, very tough sell for me. I wasn't sure if I was going to jump back in because, you know, I had been disappointed before, but what Ubisoft actually is pretty talented at doing is turning around these franchises. They even if they make a bad game, they try to learn from their mistakes. Now, yeah, they're greedy in a way, and they do some pretty sketchy things, but at the same time, even a franchise like Assassin's Creed, maybe some people don't like the direction they've taken it, but definitely Odyssey and even Origins, very, very well received. A game like For Honor, you know, they continue to work on these kind of games. The Division, same thing. So they're actively improving, and Watch Dogs 2 I thought was a fantastic game. It was one of my favorite games that year. It was one of the most fun I've ever had playing an online game in general. I played it with Tyler, and we had a ton of fun playing that game online. Were there things that they needed to improve upon? Sure, but overall I just had a much better time playing Watch Dogs 2 than I ever did playing Watch Dogs 1. I'm very, very excited for Watch Dogs Legion. I mean, this is a day one buy for me. We're going to be covering the game a ton. We're going to be giving the game away. We got a lot of stuff planned for this game. And, you know, one of the things I was wondering when thinking about this game is, could this be it? And, you know, because a third game to most publishers or most developers, I think besides Ubisoft, and that's why I'm kind of talking about it, a third game does kind of mark that point where you really look at the franchise and say, do we continue it? And, you know, a lot of gaming franchises are okay stopping themselves at 3. Some of them go to a 4 or 5 and stop there. Some of them just keep going. Now, Ubisoft is not one of those. You know, I think there are tons of games out there, again, that either stop at 3. It's a trilogy, and it goes the same thing with pretty much anything. Movies, the same thing as well. Trilogies are, you know, it just is that really nice kind of number. You have this really solid product that you made 3 of, and you really evolved it, and you can tell the growth it's made from one to the next, and it's a good spot to just kind of end it and move on. And there's plenty of games out there that have ended themselves after the third game. At the same time, there's a lot of franchises that have continued past the third game. One of the more notorious, or one of the ones I can think of that's the biggest, is Uncharted. Uncharted could have stopped after 3, but they made Uncharted 4, and they decided to end it there, and I think they did a fantastic job. Now, of course, yeah, they are thinking about making a 5th one without Nathan Drake, and I really feel like that's going to diminish what they did with 4, but whatever. The point I'm making is Ubisoft, however, I think is very not that. I don't think they are ones that stop a franchise after 1. I mean, they've got plenty of examples. Splinter Cell that they just keep making more of. They have a lot of games, Assassin's Creed, that they have like 500 of. They, you know, I think it is a testament to their talent that they do a pretty good job. And do they make some mistakes in the annualization of some of these games when they just keep cranking them out? Do they kind of get stale, and do they have to kind of rework the wheel sometimes? Yeah, but I don't think they're afraid to continue a franchise after 3 games. I think they're more than capable of continuing to improve upon it. And one of the best things I think about Watch Dogs, honestly, and you know, Watch Dogs I feel like is a very polarizing topic. I think there's a lot of people that still don't like it. I think there's people that actually think the first one's better than 2, and that 2 actually took steps backwards. I mean, I see what people are saying in some regards to it. I like the more serious story that 1 told, and 2 definitely took the franchise in a different direction. But to me, they improved upon pretty much everything from 1 to 2. And as long as they keep doing that, I think they're going to be fine. I think they are going to be able to make future franchises. Now, future entries to this franchise. Watch Dogs is not the seller that their other massive titles are. Watch Dogs 2 kind of undersold to Ubisoft. It didn't sell as many as they thought it could, and I think that's just because of expectations. Watch Dogs, the first one, sold insanely well. I believe it was one of the highest Ubisoft selling games at the time. And again, I think that was because of hype. I think it was that game that sold next generation for a lot of people. And so a lot of people bought it and a lot of people didn't like it. And then when they crank out, and they come out with a second one, people are like, all right, I'm out. I'm not going to get fooled again. We know what you're playing at here. And so those people, I see where they're coming from. And I honestly was very much in that same boat for a long time. But then I actually did jump in and played Watch Dogs 2. And I think they did a great job. But what I like about this franchise is I think there's still a ton of room for growth. Now, you can spin that as a negative where it's like, well, if the game can continue to improve massively from entry to entry, doesn't that mean there's some, seriously lacking things about it? I mean, you could argue that, and I could also probably agree, but I also think the potential for Watch Dogs is a lot higher than some other Ubisoft titles, and honestly, a lot higher than a lot of games in general. And that could be an overstatement. You could say that I'm crazy for that, but I feel like the basic premise of what Watch Dogs is, or what they kind of tried to sell people on in that first game, that a lot of people literally bought the game because of the hacking, being able to hack pretty much everything, having complete control of your city, knowing everything, being able to control things without, you actually having actual physical control over them. Those kind of things, and they showed the stadium, that was the big thing, and they showed him escaping in a car, going through the streets and turning the lights and changing things like that. I mean, they showed a lot of stuff, and I think, obviously when Watch Dogs 1 came out, it wasn't exactly that. The hacking, actually, I feel took a back seat. Second game hacking definitely took it got pushed up, and it was a much better improved feature in this game. And Legion looks even more. I mean, they're really trying to focus on the hacking, and that's great because I feel again, the potential of what hacking is to this franchise and just in games in general, I feel like they have something very the idea of what Watch Dogs is. The person who came up with that should be applauded because it's a very smart idea. And it's an idea that done right, firstly, I think you can constantly improve and add things to the feature. I feel like it's an always growing thing. But secondly, I feel like it's just really smart, and it really captures what a lot of people would like to see in a game. So I feel like the boundaries for how far this game can go are bigger than most games. So yeah, I mean, Legion would be maybe an okay point for them to just stop, but they're already doing the thing where they're jumping characters, right? You're not playing as the same character in more than one game in this franchise. I feel like a lot of the games that end the franchise after those 3 games or 4 games or whatever, they tend to be on the same character. A lot of them are single-player, story-driven games, which is what Watch Dogs is as well, but that's more open world. But that is generally how it goes, is normally it's because you're playing as the same character, and one of the main aspects I feel like why games stop after 3 or 4 games is because you've spent so much time with that main character, and maybe it's time to kind of hang it up. Maybe the game could continue in the future with different characters, but because of the way the game was structured, because of what you were doing, and because of the character you've been playing as, it's time to kind of hang it up and be done with it. And I think games that don't go based off the same character, they have their own problems. I think right off the bat it's harder to connect with them, and you only have that one game to get people to really relate to and play as that character. And then the next game, you're going to have to sell them on a brand new character. So that is, something that goes against games like this, but done right, it's it opens you up more because it's not stale. It's never stale. You can constantly be switching locations. Another thing Watch Dogs does all the time. Same thing with Assassin's Creed. That definitely opens it up because you're not playing the same universe. I mean, it's the same world, it's the same mechanics of hacking, but you're always jumping cities, right? You're never playing in the same city twice. It looks different, and then that can obviously impact the features of your game as well. So I honestly feel again, Watch Dogs has a lot of room to grow, even though it is growing. I don't want to say it as a negative thing, even though it can be taken as a negative. I feel because of how awful Watch Dogs 1 was, jumping to 2, they could have done anything with 2, and it still would have been better than 1. This is going to be the real test. Legion is going to be the real test from 2 to 3, basically, if they can really improve upon it even more and have 3 just be a fantastic game. Because then when it comes to 4, I mean, the question could be, will you hang it up? Do you have a new IP you're thinking of? Because Watch Dogs, for the most part, is pretty new, and now we have games like For Honor and The Division that Ubisoft has also just came up with, and they're doing very well. For Honor sold a lot of copies, and I wouldn't be surprised if For Honor 2 is in the making. The Division, great idea. It worked really well. It sold insane amount of copies. I think it was the #1 selling Ubisoft game ever, the first Division. Division 2 didn't sell as much, but still was a very solid game. in a lot of people's eyes. So they're coming up with IPs. I guess the question you could make against Watch Dogs continuing after 3 is how many of these can you have going on at the same time? Is Ubisoft consistently growing where they can allow Watch Dogs to continue while also allowing the Division to continue, while also allowing For Honor, obviously having Assassin's Creed, and then coming up with new franchises? And I'm missing games too. I'm not even listing all of them, but that's the question. You know, do you stop Watch Dogs for the sake of having that studio maybe come up with a completely brand new idea, or do you have the internal money to continue making Watch Dogs and still have, because I would like more ideas. I mean, Ubisoft is a pretty clever company in terms of their gaming concepts. I would like a brand new game, a brand new idea from them. But the question is, can they just manage all of that? So I personally, you know, to end this video off, I personally believe there'll be more Watch Dogs after Watch Dogs 3, as long as the game sells. I mean, the second game sold, but it didn't sell as well as 1. If 3 sells even worse, then maybe you do have to look at it. But I feel like 3 will sell, the kind of swan song of the current generation of consoles, right? But pretty much all games that come out next year are going to be considered in that kind of category. But I think this game will sell pretty darn well and will probably guarantee a Watch Dogs 4 for the next generation consoles. But guys, let me know in the comments below, do you think we're going to get Watch Dogs games past Watch Dogs Legion? Do you think we'll get a Watch Dogs 4 for next generation? Let me know. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, Podcast Now. Hit that bell icon so you guys know when these videos go up. And thank you, as always, for watching. I hope to see you on the next video.